Hey friends, I want to thank our sponsor, Raygun. Are you struggling to replicate the bugs and performance issues that your customers are reporting? Plug Raygun into your web and mobile applications right now and diagnose problems in minutes rather than hours. Kiss goodbye having to dig through log files and relying on frustrated users to report issues. Make your software development life so much easier using Raygun's error, crash, and performance monitoring tools. Every software team can create flawless software experiences for their customers with Raygun. Try it free today at raygun.com. That's RAYGUN.com. Hi, this is Scott Hansel, and this is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm talking with Tai Fujimura. He's the CEO of Cantilever. They make websites, design, development shop out of New Jersey. How are you, sir?
Very good. Great to be on with you.
So you and I have a shared kind of interest, and that is, being productive, right? I mean, as the CEO of a company that does develop and design websites, you've got to juggle a lot. And, I manage community for Visual Studio, and I work at Microsoft, and I'm juggling a lot. How many emails do you have in your inbox right now?
I don't know right now. I get to zero every morning.
Do you really?
Usually in the morning, I have maybe 20, 25. So I don't get the volume that I know a lot of people get, but a lot of that comes down to, our communication style at Cantilever, where we have more Basecamp messages and things in other places. And it also comes down to the way that I communicate in general, which is to try to encourage, longer, more substantive email communication. So, that's skipping ahead a little bit to some of the tricks that I've learned over the years. But yeah, I definitely have a passion for productivity that kind of started as a necessity because when I was just taking on more and more stuff, as I think a lot of people find as their careers evolve, and then especially having children, it became critical for me to figure out my strategy and get my act together.
Now, every company is different. The company I work at is very email heavy. You use Slack, we use Teams. I've started to realize that all of these are different inboxes, right? Like you might say you only get 25 emails in the morning. Maybe I get probably maybe 100, 150, but you probably get a lot more Slacks. And that's a kind of an inbox as well. There are multiple inboxes in our lives.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the key things that people need to understand is that a true productivity strategy is something that lets you consolidate all of those things into one place, whether it's your kid coming up to you with a permission slip or your car breaking down or an email coming in or a text message. All of that needs to go into a single consolidated location. Otherwise, you're absolutely going to go insane trying to remember what happened in certain areas and parsing that out into actions. And especially when it comes to should I do X or should I do Y, that's so hard to make a judgment on when your responsibilities are distributed among different systems.
Yeah, I think the thing that helped me was the recognition, the decision in my own head that there was more than one inbox. And then when we say inbox, we may think email, but physical bills that come in the mail, and I still get mail. Like mail is a thing. You can't. Everyone likes to say that, I've automated everything. I've automated all my bills. Well, every once in a while, something physical shows up and you need to deal with it. That's an inbox as well.
Yes, absolutely. Or something is signed or needs to be signed or sent or notary publicked or whatever.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know if you own your house.
Yeah. I mean, I have to deal with property taxes and physical things that come in the mail.
When you buy a house, you realize how much the rest of the economy still relies on fax machines and lots of paper that has to be very, very particularly kind of taken care of and transported from place to place. And
absolutely.
Cashier's checks in your hand for ungodly amounts of money, and you're just like scratching your eyes out thinking of the inefficiency as a digital person. But that's the world we live in. And, even if you try to streamline, your daily life, you are also a part of other people's lives, and you're going to need to be able to interact with those folks in a way that's convenient for them.
Yeah, I had a person come over and do some work on my house yesterday, and they would take a check or cash. and that was a
That's it.
thing,
Period.
right? And that was it. And people might be listening and saying, well, why don't they take Stripe? Frankly, they didn't know Stripe exists.
Yeah,
I don't even know if their flip phone would run Stripe. Like,
Right.
not everyone has that privilege.
Right. It's a comfort level thing. But what's great is if you have a sound productivity strategy as sort of a digitally minded person, you can convert a lot of those inputs into something that can be digitally managed. And then you get all the advantages of that system or your philosophy or your approach, but you're also still like interfacing with the rest of the world in a way that is sensible to them. Because, if you try to send that, who was it? Who was at your house?
It was a handy person.
Yeah. So if you try to send them a link to your online portal where they can receive payment, I think they're probably not going to be too pleased. So you need to be able to act as the bus, if you will, to get signal from one place to the other, and that's and you can kind of be in your own domain and have things set up the way that you want, but still interface reasonably with everyone else.
I think also that when I first started my productivity kind of journey, which was my, that moment where you say I'm overwhelmed, was I thought that what I needed was a prescription. So I would go and ask people to tell me all about their tools, like tell me what you use. But now I've realized that it's not about the tools. Like I don't want to know what you, Ty, use as a tool. It's interesting. But the fact that you set up a system, your tool might be to-do.txt, or it might be
absolutely
a to-do app or Wunderlist or whatever. I don't know. But it's the fact that you're conscious, I think, is what's important.
Yeah. It can be a paper notebook or a series of paper notebooks. Stone tablets if you want. if you're good, if that's your style, go for it. You're right. The number one thing is the fact that you have a system. And I think the system that you have does need to have certain characteristics. And, to provide some background, my personal strategy is based heavily off the Getting Things Done methodology by David Allen, and I'm very much inspired by his writing and the work that their company has done. And so fundamentally, the way that you want your system to be, which is sort of your database, your repository of everything that you need to do, all the commitments you've made, and even things you want to do that you don't need to do. You need that to be instantly accessible wherever you are. That's a key rule. So like if you're a paper person, you need to at least make sure that, you have one of your notebooks on you at all times, because, how many times have you been in that situation where you get a phone call or you are in a conversation with someone and they say, let's just say they recommend a book. You really want to read that book. If you just try to remember all of those things for the rest of your life, not only is your head going to be full of stuff that you might not be relevant to you at any given moment, but you're going to let a lot of things slip through the cracks. So you need to be able to externalize your memory so that you're never reliant just on being able to, kind of keep up with all the input, but you have these tools. And we have tools in this day and age. And we don't have to rely on our brains as a storage mechanism. And I think once you make that sort of mental switch to think that your brain is about processing information, not storing information, which is a big theme of the GTD methodology, that is revolutionary. You externalize all of your tracking and your monitoring of those commitments, and you just get to focus your brain power on solving your problems, on being creative, on getting, literally getting things done. That's a huge switch for a lot of people.
That is a really interesting and cool way to think about it. The idea that I am good at processing, I'm not good at keeping a lot of information in high fidelity, right?
Yes.
Rote memorization is also not fun. Well,
No,
checking boxes on to-do list is fun.
Yes. And being up until 2 a.m, going through all the things in your head that you're trying not to forget that you have to do tomorrow is that's a painful place as well. And it's also a painful place when you do drop the ball and you do forget that, birthday or that thing you were supposed to pick up before you got home because someone's coming over. So, I think it's pivotal if you want to grow, if you want to achieve, big complicated things in the world, whatever that is. It's pivotal that you sit down and establish the method that you're going to use to process all of these inputs and these commitments, and actually be accountable to all of them. And one great thing there is if you create a system and you establish your life in a way that you know that you're going to get to all of your commitments, that's incredibly powerful. And it's powerful for your relationships because people can count on you more. But it's also powerful for yourself because, like, I remember going back all the way to third grade. I used to be, lying in bed thinking of the homework that I hadn't done and how I was going to have to figure out how to, get out of it or weasel around it tomorrow or squeeze it in at lunch or something like that. And that like creeping sense of dread in the back of your head that, am I doing everything that I needed to? Have I prepared properly? Have I remembered everything? That's a huge mental drag. And if you're a creative person, especially, like if you're trying to make music or paint or, teach people or whatever you're trying to do, being able to just totally be in the moment, know that all of your commitments are taken care of, that everything's going to happen, and that you are keeping your promises to the outside world, that makes you feel better about yourself. And it frees you up to be able to do your best work.
Yeah. The word that I have historically used in my talks on productivity is the psychic weight.
Oh, yes.
Of the things. Like people don't realize, like, I don't know about you, but I have multiple monitors. And on one of those monitors, I like to keep the Process Explorer or the Task Manager running. And I tend to sort by CPU. And I've done that so long that I bet you that there's one in my head. There's a Task Manager in my head.
You run top all day.
Yeah, I run top or H top. I mean, I'm not a savage, right? Sorted by CPU. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Sorted by CPU. And I could tell you when I don't have my system with me. Maybe I don't have my phone or I fail to write something down. The psychic weight is 3%, 5%, 7%. It's that annoying little process running in the background. You're like, what is it that you're doing? And, if you kill -9 that process, you're probably not going to end up bringing milk home, or you're going to forget something important, and then you'll have let someone down. Maybe it's a small thing, like you didn't bring milk and you don't have milk for your tea, or maybe it's a big thing, like you forgot to meet with the vice president at work and you're a no-show.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't take many of those moments to kind of convince people that, it's time to make a switch. I talk to people about this, and a lot of people kind of naturally put together a methodology that kind of works enough, and that's the necessity part, is that I think most people, if they're trying to do something creative or difficult, especially in technology, they're going to have to adapt to a certain degree. But where you really take it to the next level is being deliberate about the way that you want that system to function, and the manner in which you plan to work from it and process it. And those are things, if you're interested in this topic, the book Getting Things Done is excellent. There's also, David Allen's been all over the place doing TED Talks and such, and you can find a lot of resources on that. There's a lot of other strategies available as well. But the number one thing is that you need to learn how you're going to live with your system. Because if you just establishing where you're going to keep all your crap is not going to get the crap, dealt with. So that's the sort of second pillar of this, is that, first of all, you need a system, but second of all, you need a relationship with that system. What are you going to do on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis to ensure that system is up to date and that it parallels accurately your priorities within your life?
Hey friends, summer's longer days and slower pace invite us to pick up a book, follow our questions, and try our hand at something new. The work of modern software developers is evolving in ways that are both challenging and rewarding. As a developer, it's essential that you cultivate a security mindset. And to help, we've put together a collection of information security books, podcasts, blogs, and hands-on exercises recommended by Veracoders across our development, security, and product teams. From a just-published page-turner to classic FRAC articles, there's something here for everyone who's interested in becoming more security-minded. So dip your toes in or take a deep dive. Visit www.veracode, that's V-E-R-A, code.com/reading. That's veracode.com/reading. Do you think that people should learn this, should be taught this? Is this something that should be a class? Because I'm looking at my 13-year-old who is going to be going into high school soon and is doing a mediocre job at managing his homework in his life. I'm looking at my nephew who just graduated from high school, and frankly, I'm amazed that he pulled it off with the scheduling systems that they have. And then my niece who is now out of college and going into the workplace. So I've got these kind of different people going from different stages of their life, and none of them really seem to have formal systems. And, with all due respect to them, they've tended to miss things. They forget there's a party today, and they forgot that there was it's the homework is the night before, or I didn't realize we were going to meet today. I thought that was Tuesday. And you can't just say, hey, young person, why don't you use Google Calendar? This is larger. I don't remember ever learning organizational theory in school.
It's absurd. Yeah, 1,000% it should be a class. I mean, add that to the list of things that ought to be a class, like changing a tire, changing a diaper, doing your taxes.
Yes, it should all be a class. Absolutely.
Yes, it should be life skills class. I mean, I'm sure, like in the age of shop class, maybe this was more top of mind, academically. But yeah, I think absolutely. And one thing you can do is, if you're a part of an institution, like let's say you're a teacher and you're dealing with high schoolers, one thing you can help them do is learn how to manage the commitments that they make to you. So if you say that a certain assignment's due on a certain day, or you give a kid a mandate to bring you some research by a certain date or whatever, ask them, how do you plan to do that? What are you gonna change or implement in your life so that you make sure that that's going to happen? And you're going to have your exceptional kids who just actually have the brain power to keep things in their mind and also execute things at a high level, which is it's never me.
That is not me either.
Yeah. But
I don't think this is about being born this way. Like this is something that is absolutely taught.
Yeah. It's taught, and it's vital. I think if you were able to introduce that, even just the thought that maybe I need something to keep track of all this into the life of a young person, that's vital. And then, as you mentioned, we have people coming out of college who have never really had to deal with, quote, capital R, capital L, real life, and all the bills coming in and all the commitments and all the relationships that are a part of being an adult. And as an employer, I think one major thing you can do is try to evangelize and communicate these ideas within your organization, because not only are your people going to improve in productivity nominally, but more importantly, they're going to feel a sense of peace in their life, because they feel that they have their act together. And that's going to reflect incredibly well on on the attitude and the manner in which the work gets done when they're actually at work. If they feel that their commitments at home are taken care of, or at least that they're logged and ready to be worked on when needed, that's going to free people up mentally. So I think it's a vital amenity in the 21st century for employers to encourage this kind of thinking with their people, because you're just going to get so much more refreshed and energized staff if you're able to emphasize a lot of these principles.
And a lot of these principles, as you've mentioned, have been talked about, whether it be David Allen's Getting Things Done or Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. These are, productivity is a well-known and understood science, certainly a billion-dollar business. But what I think you and I are talking about is really the philosophy of not letting life happen to you by default.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If you simply accept the defaults, then you're going to have a challenge. But if you can somehow be given the tools, can be taught to sit down, define work, and execute on work. Like on my list, when I'm looking at my to-do list right here, it's got some work stuff, move this to the virtual machine, set up this network, buy dirt. I need to buy dirt. And I've actually using my little system here, because I've got it in a reminder tool, that when I leave the house, it will say, hey, don't forget to buy dirt, as I leave the geofence of my house. Now, that's a nerd detail.
Yeah.
But when I explained it to non-technical spouse and said, hey, you know that you can tell your personal assistant, remind me to buy dirt when I leave here. And they were like, game changer. Game changer. Or suddenly I'm getting things done.
Yeah, absolutely. So that so many good points there. The first point you made about not letting your life happen to you, I think that's a vital turning point as well. And I think that really well pertains to the topic of young people, because I think young people are used to being told, be here at this time, get this done by then. And then you're out in the world and you have situations where, no one's going to be nagging you. No one's going to be reminding you that, you really need to hand this in by a certain date. And if something's late, if you miss the train, you miss the train. If you miss that flight, you miss that flight. Too bad. So I think that's something that's really pivotal to instill in people, is that, you are in charge of the commitments you make, but you're also in charge of whether you actually fulfill those or not. And you're going to feel so much more inner harmony and less psychic weight, as you put it, if you are accurately and consistently delivering on the promises that you make to the world. So you need to look at your life as something that you are actively constructing and not something that just kind of occurs. And I'm blanking on the fine, insightful thing that you said at the end. Please remember.
That's okay. I think we both agree, though, that the definition of work and applying some things like the getting things done, do it, drop it, delegate it, defer it. I'm going to make sure we have links in the show notes to all these kind of things. You and I agree on philosophy. Let's compare notes on tools, though, because I think that the other thing is, don't take, and this is for the listener, don't take my word for it. Don't take Ty's word for it. Try a tool. If it makes you happy, drop it. Like, the great thing about advice is you don't have to take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in speaking about our tools, I think we can kind of contextualize that for people too. Like, what is it about this that works for us in particular?
I started with my, when I was overwhelmed in the early days, it was to-do.txt on my desktop. And that graduated to a Palm Pilot that I would carry in my pocket everywhere, which graduated to, I'm living, you know how I'm living.
I know your lifestyle.
Yeah, that's true. So, Palm Pilot. And then I graduated to, the reminders list on my iPhone. And then I realized with the reminders list on my iPhone that it wasn't everywhere. The thing that you stated, it has to be everywhere. I use it still sometimes, but I ended up graduating. I use Microsoft To Do, which I would say I was initially dismissive of. I was like, okay, Microsoft has a To Do app. I don't really care. But it's got an iPhone app, it's got a Mac app, it's got a Windows app. It synchronizes everywhere. And if I flag an email, it shows up as a To Do. If someone assigns me a task, it shows up in To Do. So it is everywhere, and that it is the ever presence of it that was what I needed for at least my list of to-dos. And then that plus Dropbox puts the data wherever I'm at, because Dropbox is on my Apple devices and my Windows devices. And I would say Microsoft To Do plus Dropbox has been everything I've needed so far. Right.
That's great. So my primary system is in OmniFocus, which is the Cadillac of tools for productivity. And so basically every single commitment in my life goes into OmniFocus as a to-do. And then from there, I process that into the different buckets and contexts in which I will be. And that's a pivotal step that I didn't get to touch on yet.
Context. What's a context?
Yeah, so a context is something you need in order to accomplish a certain task. So if you have buy dirt, your context there is, depends on how you live. In my case, I work at home. I'm not usually in the car. So for that situation, I would put car. And so I have a category of contexts that are equipment, and the car is one of those things. It's not always at home. Usually my wife has it. When it's here and I have the chance to, go to Home Depot and get the dirt, that's the tool that I'm going to need to make that happen. But you can also have contexts that represent other people. So I might have a Scott context for, when we're chatting, these are some things that I want to bring up with you. Or I might have I have context for my children. I have things that I need to remind them of, or talk to them about, or help prepare them for. And I need them there in order to have that conversation. Right. So contexts are key, because what that lets you do is, if you take all of that input, everything that you need to do, and you split that up into buckets according to what you need in order to finish them, then all you need to do to look for something productive to do is go to the appropriate bucket. So if you're at the doctor's office and you have 10 minutes, well, what do you have? You have your phone. So look in your phone context. Look at all the things that you previously have designated. These are things that I can accomplish with just my phone. Or when you're, I just mentioned my context with my kids. If we have a nice walk home, or we're in the car, I know that I can just take a quick glance at my system. I know the, 2 or 3 things that I wanted to chat with them about. So I can make sure that when that resource is available, or that person is available, that I'm taking full advantage and I'm doing things that I can uniquely do in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when you're in front of your computer at your desk, you don't want to be doing things that you could be doing at the doctor's office.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You want to be doing things that you can uniquely do in that situation with the tools you have available, and push the rest of it off until other situations, so that overall within the course of your day, you're getting more out of your day.
Right. And that context can be a place like, shopping or in standing in line. It can be a thing like I have my phone, I have my laptop, or it could be a headspace. If there's a thing that you can't do unless your context is, calm or, free time or whatever. Like if you're working on the great American novel, you need to be in a certain headspace. That can be a kind of context as well.
Yeah. I have 2 in that vein, which I find very helpful. One is when I feel creative. So when I feel like I can knock something out, if you do any writing or speaking, things like that, sometimes a given article will take you all day, and sometimes it'll take you an hour, and it's really hard to predict kind of when that headspace is going to happen. At least for me. So I love having that context, because if I have energy, if I have a little short block of time, I know that there's something that requires my focus and creativity that I can do probably much faster than I will be able to in a different place. Like an airplane, for instance, is a great example. That's a wonderful situation for your creative context. The other context I have for Headspace is tired mode. So when I'm dragging at the end of the day, it's getting to 5 o'clock or whatever, I still have another 20 minutes before my kids are home, and I'm going to be giving them dinner or whatever. But so I still have a window of time where I've got my computer, but I'm shot. It's the end of the day. What can I do? So this is simpler emails, following up on things, remembering to just check in or do research, or just brainstorm something. Those are perfect things for your tired context. And that lets you get the maximum out of those moments when you're not feeling your best. And what you're doing there is since you're taking that time to take care of those tasks aren't getting in the way when you do have more energy.
It sounds to me like you did this on your own. Do you think you were always this way, or did someone teach you?
So I was mostly self-directed in this regard. As I mentioned, mostly out of necessity, just having a lot on my plate and having to figure out ways to process all of that. I would say the Getting Things Done book was pretty pivotal. I mean, I think probably the way I found it was through articles online, just reading up on different to-do list strategies. Like you, I think I started with text files or, very simple applications, sort of like one axis to-do lists, and then kind of advanced into thinking in a more GTD aligned manner and building up my tool set. So it was a pretty slow process. And the other thing I would say with GTD in particular is that I got on it and I was using it for about a year. And then I really learned how to use it.
Really?
So it took me probably, a year and a half before I went from just like nominally applying these ideas to really relying on it in my life. And that was a big turning point, because that was where I really started to trust the system and think that, if I was holding something in my head, I started to get that sense that, nope, this is wrong. Something's wrong about the situation. I have to deal with it. So yeah, mostly self-directed.
Yeah. I think the acknowledgement though, like what do they say? Step 1 is realizing you have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking to your point about with kids, I think it's a gift that I really look forward to giving to them. Is a framework to think about their life. That, as you said, it's not attached to a software tool. It's not attached to any particular tactic. Mm-hmm. It's a way of thinking about your life. And people often think, productivity is for work. Productivity means cranking out more widgets during your day than the other person. Mm-hmm. And that it's thereby sort of would capitalistic be too much of a stretch? It's like,
well, I think that the point isn't to optimize for production.
yes, exactly.
The point is to optimize for what you want to optimize for.
Yeah, totally.
There's a famous quote, and I actually talk about it in my productivity talk, my own talk, where a gentleman says, if something in my life is not making me money, then it's out. So I scratched that part about money out. And I said, if it's not underscore, where there's a blank space, if it's not whatever, where whatever is the thing that you care about, if it's not blank, helping me spend time with my family, if it's not helping me build my business, if it's not helping me spend time with my, sick grandparents, whatever the thing is that you care about should be the thing you're optimizing for. So when you say, you have that feeling when you ask a friend, you're like, how do you have so many hours in the day? I don't know how you get so much done. It's very likely that it is not that it's intentionality. It is the intentionalness of it. And this can be the same whether you're a computer person or whether you're working the fryolator at McDonald's. The productive people, we have privilege in that we can make these tools. But when I didn't have privileges, when I didn't have money, I was doing a lot of this work in a folded piece of paper.
100%, yeah. And if you are working the fryolator, what are you trying to do after that?
Exactly, because you're going to school at night.
Manager? Yeah, right. Are you going to school? You should be listening to audiobooks, while you're at the fry.
Probably not while you're on the fries, but I hear you.
1 year is fine. That's not a health and safety concern. But yeah, it's finding those advantages, and that's where I think people get it a little bit wrong. Is they think that anything to do with productivity means doing more work and being at work more. And that's precisely the opposite. It's that if you optimize the things you have to do within your day, that gives you more time for the things you want to do in your day.
That's really, really important. I think that's even where we should end on that, because what you're saying is you get in, you do the thing, and you get out.
Yep. And you don't spend time on Facebook, and you don't waste time. If you're in a cab, you're getting let's say you have 8 hours of work to do in a day. If you can sneak in more of that 8 hours into the time that you have, the time window that you have to do your work, quote unquote, that is going to leave you time at the end of the day. You might be done an hour earlier than you thought. You might be able to go to that soccer practice that you thought you weren't going to make, or put time into that book, or write that song that you've been thinking about that's been rattling around in your head. You just have to imagine, most of us have so little time. I've really got a couple hours at the end of the day where I can really just hang out and do what I'm interested in creatively. So if I can squeeze in an extra hour, an extra 2 hours, that's increasing the amount of actual free time that I have by a huge percentage.
Exactly.
And everybody has this time somewhere in their life, and it's just about setting up a system and devoting the upfront cost of setting that up in order to be so much more free and available for the things you want to do.
Right. And we're not trying to make people feel guilty if they're not productive. Because remember when we said a moment ago, it's not about making money or being productive. It's about optimizing for what you want. So to be clear, if binge watching a show on Netflix feeds your spirit and you want to do it. You should do it, but you should do it intentionally.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just accidentally watch, I was supposed to do this thing for work and I accidentally watched 8 hours of Netflix.
Yeah.
That's a problem. But I'm going to treat myself, and this weekend I'm going to watch this Netflix show, and I don't feel bad at all.
Exactly. That's the headspace that you want to be in, is that not feeling bad at all. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Tai Fujimura, CEO of Cantilever. You can check him out at Cantilever, CANTILEVER.co. Check them out. They build websites and design and can solve your problems. And I appreciate you solving a few of mine today, Tai.
Thank you so much, Scott. It was a pleasure.
This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.